Hello everyone, my name is Adrian DiFilippo Gutierrez, and this is my presentation on my WGCU summer internship. A little about me, I'm currently going into my senior year here at FGCU. I'm majoring in journalism with a minor in anthropology. One fact about me is I'm currently working on two long-term photo projects, one of which covers the rural, undeveloped parts of Florida, and the other is covering the cultures of the Deep South in places such as Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. These kind of directly tie into my career goals and why I ultimately chose this internship here at WGCU. So, like I said, I'm at WGCU. In particular, I was interning with the documentary unit. So, WGCU, if you don't know, is our local NPR affiliate branch, which means it is a nonprofit public media corporation. My role was as an assistant in the documentary team. I've been here since May 4th, and my internship is coming to an end, but I was fortunate enough to receive a paid position offer starting in the fall semester. I got this opportunity after interviewing two of the members for a class assignment last semester, and we got to chatting after the interview. I expressed my interest in documentary work and shared some of my personal projects, so they were able to open up an intern position for me for the summer. Some of my duties included collecting digital and physical resources, such as photos, newspaper articles, oral histories, things of that sort. I was assisting on scene with video shoots. I was helping out with post-production editing. I was involved in research, whether that be for, researching the topics that we're making documentaries on, or researching the people that we were going to be interviewing for the documentaries. Like I mentioned in my intro slide, this internship kind of directly correlated with my career goals, as I am already passionate about documentary style work. My end goal is to kind of create long form, in depth pieces of journalism covering topics, involving culture and society. So this style of documentary journalism was right up my alley. WGCU does focus more on human interest reporting rather than hard news, versus other traditional news outlets. And the documentary team focuses on local history. So working with them kind of taught me what goes into preparing for, capturing, and sharing this style of journalism. Being here taught me what it looks like to work in a professional setting and all the skills that go into it, such as communication, professionalism, teamwork. All those traits were in full display throughout my internship. Because there are so many moving parts here at WGCU, I was constantly working with other departments, and it was clear from the very beginning that communication was very important. This meant weekly team meetings, sending and receiving updates over email, or even just dropping by a colleague's desk to ask a question. Like I said, it's very important to always be on the same page with other departments, with so many things going on, so many different projects at once. So communication and teamwork was a very big skill that I had to learn very quickly here at WGCU. My supervisor was the team's videographer and editor, Tom James. He's been working in documentaries for his whole career. He had a production company back in Kansas City for about 15 years. So obviously he has a lot of experience in video production. That being said, I learned a lot from him when it comes to video production, such as, planning for your shoots, the skills in the field, such as your lighting setup, your compositions, your technical aspects, and equipment to use, things like that. But obviously now at WGCU, he has had to lean more into the journalistic aspect, focusing on things that are important to the community, researching why they're important, and, conveying these documentaries in a way that portray the importance to the audiences and those that are going to be, watching. My role, like I said before, was mostly kind of just finding media that could be useful for our documentaries. This meant scouring online databases for old photos and news articles. This meant, visiting the library at Fort Myers Beach and the archive department to go through boxes and boxes of artifacts that we could use. It's actually what you see here in this bottom right corner. I just had to spend a couple hours, in a room at the library, just going through all the boxes and trying to find things that could be useful for our documentary. And I did. I ended up finding old newspaper articles that were perfect for our documentaries, old photos. What you see here in the top left corner was a photo I found on the Library of Congress online archives of the Great Hurricane of 1926. And then I photoshopped a newspaper clipping that I found at the library on top of it, to kind of go along with the Calusa documentary that we're working on. So many of my contributions were things like this, physical things that I created in Photoshop and put together that could be shown as B-roll for the documentaries. Professionalism was obviously a big discussion for all of us throughout the course of our internships. As we've learned, professionalism is, how you hold yourself in the work environment with your colleagues and your superiors and everything like that. But what I learned in particular here at WGCU is what it means to be professional to those outside your organization. Because we are a public media company, it's very important to maintain trust and respect with those in the community so that they know, that you're out there to only for fair and accurate reporting. So like I said, it's very important to show professionalism to those that you're working with outside the organization so that they can trust you and the organization. This photo here was when we were interviewing an archaeologist on Mound Key for our documentary. And this is, again, another example of, when we're working with somebody like an archaeologist for a different company, it's important to be professional so that when we're representing WGCU, they have a respect and, they can trust that we are going to be doing our job properly. There are many skills that we've all learned as journalists in our other courses, such as news writing, interviewing, searching through public records, of course. So a lot of that I did get to utilize during my internship. I got to sharpen a lot of those skills that we learned. But it was also, I think, most useful to see how working professionals that are very experienced in the field demonstrate these skills. There's only so much that you could learn in a classroom being taught, but once you get to actually do it and see other professionals do it firsthand, I think that's when it's really easy to grasp those concepts. And then obviously the career competencies that we learned during our journalism course were on full display by working professionals. So again, those are things that once you see them in action, they're a lot easier to understand and use those on your own in the future. So the impact I think this had on my career was tremendous. I think it's going to provide a great stepping stone for the future of my career. I do think working in public media is one of my end goals, so getting to see that firsthand was definitely very important to me. I do believe that working in public media is a way to give back to the community, as it is, like I said, nonprofit, it's public, so it's one of the few outlets nowadays that doesn't have corporate sponsors and doesn't have that corporate interference that maybe pushes people to maybe not be 100% honest or maybe have different agendas when reporting on things. So that's why I think WGCU and other public media is ultimately my end goal, because I think it's a great way to give back to the community. All right, and that was it. That was my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.